All right. I apologize to Cardinals fans. Big win for y'all. But a much more impactful Monday night game was also played earlier at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. I mean, a thrilling game, 41-31, Ravens get the win.
Yeah.
Almost 1,000 yards of offense, points galore. Lamar Jackson made an MVP statement, if I've ever seen one. Really answered the bell from Jared Goff's performance on Sunday.
You honestly had a great tweet about Lamar Jackson. Like, everyone's like, after this weekend, who's up there with Jared Goff? That's got to be one of the best performances we've ever. Lamar Jackson.
Complimenting my tweets will get you everywhere on this show, just for the record.
I know.
But okay, we will talk plenty of Lamar. We're going to talk about this big Ravens win, but a strange, bizarre, sad, like I said, somber sequence at the end of this game really put a damper on everything. 41-31 is the final, but the Ravens had this game put away with 6-7 minutes to play. They were up 41-18. The Bucs stage a furious rally. Honestly, lost in all of this, maybe one of the best onside kicks I've ever seen.
Yes, and the fact that they replicated it, Chase McLaughlin, he did it again, and they didn't recover it the second time, but it was the exact same kick, and it gave the Bucs a chance to get it.
That leads us to the unfortunate situation where the Bucs are down 10 with just over a minute to play. Clearly, even with everything we just said about nice kicking performances, this game is over. And unfortunately, Bucs receiver Chris Godwin suffers what the Bucs believe to be a dislocated ankle. Really,
ending his season, if that's the case.
It's very likely a season ender. It was really nasty looking in real time. You see the scenes here. He's loaded onto the cart. That's obviously
there's an air cast already. Never a good sign.
Baker
Teammates
Mayfield
are coming over,
slamming his helmet on the ground in frustration.
Baker was really shaken up after delivering that pass, for sure. Like, he was, for the entire time that Chris was on the ground, on the field, Baker couldn't even look. He was so distraught.
This also comes with the added problem that Mike Evans left this game early after injuring his hamstring on a go ball to the end zone, comes up screaming in pain, exits with the Buccaneers training staff. Don't know the severity of that, but he didn't return to the game after an injury that happened, I believe, in the first quarter. So
second.
Excuse me.
Yeah, right at the beginning of the second quarter.
Point being.
Yeah.
Such fantastic players. Mike Evans, a potential Hall of Fame player, faces of that franchise, key pieces of the team that won the Super Bowl in 2020.
And this was also coming after Mike Evans had caught his 100th touchdown, putting him into the ranks with Hall of Famers as far as the amount of yards he's accumulated, the amount of touchdowns he's had in his career, and it just dampens the whole thing that the next go around, he ends up getting hurt.
You could get whiplash from the high of the beginning of this game for Tampa versus the low of the end, because they came out with their hair on fire. They punched Baltimore right in the mouth. They went right down the field. Mike Evans caught his 100th career touchdown. They go up 10-0. It looks like they're ready to make a statement about their place in the pecking order of the NFL. Not only do the Ravens roll over them from there, but they lose Chris Godwin in what feels like kind of a meaningless moment. And I think that is going to be, if you're listening to this on a Tuesday morning, that's what everybody in the sports world is going to be talking about right now, is that you already lost Mike Evans. You lose Chris Godwin in a situation where you probably can't win this game. And it's no surprise Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles was asked several questions about why his veteran receivers even on the field at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, though, all of the starters were in. This wasn't a situation where just Chris Godwin was in or anything like that. The guys wanted to stay on the field. And there's a couple of things that you point to when things like this are happening, which is improbable comebacks do happen, as improbable as they are. These guys in particular want to be on the field. And yes, as a coach, you kind of have a responsibility to save these guys from themselves. But there are also multiple coaches. Don't forget, Todd does not call the defense or call the offense. He calls the defense. And not that there's anybody to really blame in these scenarios. It's just a matter of this stuff unfortunately happens. I don't think it's fair to say you needed to wave the white flag and pull your guys when you did get kind of the injection of adrenaline from the onside kick. You know it's improbable, but these guys want to stay out there and keep playing, as evidenced by the fact that, I mean, I think the coaches just kind of let Baker stay on the field after the Chris Godwin injury to like exercise some demons at that point, because it didn't make a whole lot of sense to keep throwing the ball. And I'm here to say that's absolutely true. But I also feel like that was kind of Baker being like, I don't know what to do right now. I need to just get this out.
I'll go as far as to say, yeah, stuff happens in football. Football players play football. That type of stuff goes with the territory. And I do think fans sometimes lose sight of the fact this is NFL football where there's 46 guys dressed for a game.
Yeah.
You can't wholesale swap out chunks of your roster the way that you can in college football. Having said that, number one, Chris Godwin maybe is the exception of a player where you consider doing that. A veteran player, a player with an injury history,
yeah.
a player that plays a position where you have several other options. I mean, the Bucs didn't sit any receivers for this game. So Todd Bowles made note of the fact that, look, we already lost Mike. How many guys do we have? But Sterling Shepard, Jalen McMillan, Trey Palmer,
yeah,
all in uniform.
Right.
Chris Godwin didn't need to be on the field. But having said that, I'll even go as far as to say, hey, shit happens in the NFL. But after the injury, continuing to chuck the ball with even less time remaining.
That's why I say I literally think it was Baker Mayfield just kind of refusing to come off, exercising whatever demons he had. Kind of, you saw how shaken up he was because obviously he threw the ball to Chris that got him hurt. So I feel like this was Baker's way of just kind of working and processing through that, quite honestly. And that was a very human moment for him.
It's just, it just sucks because this was, and I mean, their season's not over. They're still above 500. We'll see the severity of the Mike Evans injury, but man, they have been so fun. And this feels like it puts a hard cap on their ceiling when you're talking about potentially multiple pieces of their passing game being out.
Which had been so incredibly productive and, more importantly, so incredibly fun. That's what's so heartbreaking about all of this, is that the Buccaneers have been rolling, and in different ways. I mean, we even saw it this game against the Ravens. They ran the ball really especially to begin the game, and they have now this three-headed offensive backfield with Rachaad White coming back into the lineup. And it's so unfortunate for a team that was having so much fun to lose both of their glue guys. I mean, it's not just that Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are the best receivers on this team. They're some of the best people and the best teammates that you have. They're best leaders that you have in that locker room. And to see both of them go down is almost unfathomable. Like, I think I'm still completely in disbelief that it happened in the same game. And it's so incredibly unfortunate luck. It happens in prime time. It happens at home. I mean, these guys they're so close in this locker room. And to see this happen to two of their best is just, it's incredibly heartbreaking.
I do want to throw this out there. I think it's worth clarifying. Crush Todd Bowles all you want to if you feel like Chris Godwin shouldn't have been out there. But in the immediate aftermath of this, there was a lot going around that Bowles didn't understand the rules, that there's a hard cap on the number of onside kick attempts you're able to have. That's not true.
That's not true.
Our friend Peter Schrager clarified it pretty quickly after the game. That rule was proposed at some point while the NFL was tinkering with all of its kickoff rules.
I guess whatever was cached in like the Google search, whatever Google produced a wrong result.
This is a different conversation, but search engines are nowhere near as trustworthy,
reliable as you want them to be.
Our own Dean Blandino also took to X to clarify this as well. Dean said he quote tweeted Peter's tweet and said, "There's no limit to the number of onside kicks a team can attempt. The only restrictions are it has to be the fourth quarter
and you have to be trailing.
Yes. Otherwise, it's all fair game." So there's no rule that Todd Bowles didn't know. He just thought his guys should be on the field. You can second guess that all you want to, but at the very least, I'll do the Bucs the credit of saying they didn't run afoul of an imaginary NFL rule.
No.
But it's a huge damper on what had been a fun season at this point. Hoping for the best for Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. We'll see where the Buccaneers go from here, but just a bummer of a way to cap off what had been a really entertaining Monday night game.
True.
Now, that does not mean that we're not going to give some flowers to the Baltimore Ravens, who, like I said, it reminded me of Thanos fighting the Avengers, where like Captain America gave him a great punch across the jaw, and the Ravens just turned right back around and like threw a planet at the Buccaneers. Like that's what it felt like I was watching, where the Ravens go down 10-0, and from there, Lamar Jackson just went nuts.
Yeah.
17 of 22 on the night for 281, 5 touchdowns. He threw as many touchdowns as he did incompletions, added 52 rushing yards to that. After the first,
he was throwing a complete game up into like the fourth quarter. It was, or maybe it was the third, but he was throwing a complete game, or a perfect game. Sorry. There's been a lot of baseball going on lately too. He had a perfect passer rating into the third quarter.
So the Ravens punted on their first possession. Remember, the Bucs sacked Lamar twice. Yaya Diaby got in on it. Antoine Winfield and Levante David got in on it. And like I said, you're like, oh, the Bucs defense, everybody's healthy. Let's see what they can do.
Yeah.
After that punt, the Ravens go touchdown, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, touchdown. Then they did have a fumble. They are human after all. I guess they do make mistakes. That was the play where Lamar threw into the flat and he threw it behind his receiver.
Yes.
We thought Zion McCollum was going to have the coolest touchdown return of the season. And unfortunately,
Rule of cool should be a real thing.
And even after that fumble,
yeah,
and the Bucs score to make it 34-18, they went right back down the field. Lamar looked flawless.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, ironically, a slow start for him. It looked like the Bucs had bottled him up. And then late in the third, he tears off an 81-yard run. This is 4th career run of 80-plus yards. He's on a very short list of guys that have done that in the last 30 years. These guys look unstoppable, man. When both of them are on, and they basically have been all season at this point, I don't know how many defenses are equipped to do anything about it.
Honestly, it was really impressive what Lamar was doing when Derrick Henry wasn't really getting going. Because you're right, for at least the first half, Derrick Henry had a very, very quiet night. And instead, you have Mark Andrews catching touchdowns. You have 2 of them, in fact. You have Rashad Bateman, who finished 4 of 4 for 121 yards and a touchdown. Like, Lamar was dealing even when Derrick Henry was not a huge part of their offensive production. And that's what's so impressive this year. And this is why you're seeing everybody talk about how, yes, Lamar won MVP last year, but he's playing better football this year. It's wild, the tear that Lamar Jackson in particular is on.
Do we want to throw that up there somewhere? Do we have the splits between Lamar this year and Lamar last year? Because it's wild. Yeah.
There it is.
Newsflash. I knew we had him. This is incredible stuff. Lamar Jackson won MVP in 2023, and the 2024 version, I'd go as far as to say, is
significantly better,
blowing him out of the water.
Yes.
To this point in the season.
Yes.
And I know there's still plenty of season left, but at this point, and we can get into this in a minute, at this point, it's just a question of whether Derrick Henry is going to vulture MVP votes away from Lamar, because and that is a valid conversation when you consider how much better the Ravens look with a threat like that in their backfield. Because with Derrick Henry taking up that type of attention, it just makes things so much easier on everybody else. I mean,
it's why there was nobody around Rashad Bateman most of the night, Mark Andrews most of the night. Like, you're sacrificing guys down in the box to contend with Derrick Henry. And then you're leaving these one-on-one matchups to Mark Andrews, especially, who now looks like, I was like, welcome back.
Yeah.
This is the
Andrews,
the toe drag swag from a tight end. That is especially sick.
Mark Andrews fantasy managers, chill the hell out. Okay.
Right.
It's a long season.
He's coming back from injury. It takes a little while.
Rashad Bateman with like a 98 Randy Moss-esque stat line, 4 catches on 4 targets for 121 and a touch. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
And yeah, Zay Flowers was the one that had the quiet night tonight, but guess what? You don't need all those guys to ball at the same time when you're moving the ball this effectively on the ground. It's truly impressive. the Ravens move to 5-2. They certainly are on the short list of real deal contenders. I think the only team that I'd be definitively willing to put above them is the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's really more about respect than anything.
Right.
That's
The
more
fact
about
that I refuse to bet against Andy Reid
Yeah.
and Patrick Mahomes.
that's more about
ever.
what they've done than how they're playing. But
Right.
a banner night for Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and the rest of the Baltimore Ravens.